Welcome to the Chi for Two podcast. We're a group of Chi for Two embodiment coaches that look at pop culture with a Chi for Two lens. I'm Chelsea Szegidewicz.
I'm Fred Shelton.
I'm Carly Sackellares.
I'm Cas Pryor.
And this is the Chi for Two podcast. What is Chi for Two?
The word Chi is a word we use from East Asia. It means energy around the body. The 4-2 reminds us of the importance of the two-person dances that we have in our lives and how our nervous system is reactive to those dances.
What we're talking about today is some pretty topical controversy that's happening within the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives franchise, world, universe. We're going to try to talk about this from a Chi for Two perspective. This is still an ongoing investigation, so in no way are we wanting to label anyone, the perpetrator, just kind of talking about the cycles that can happen in romantic relationships, and family relationships as well. And just to give a little bit of background. So Taylor Frankie Paul, she is the leader of the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and what they call Mom Talk, which was something that they created probably around when TikTok came to be, like 2020. They were a group of Mormon wives in Salt Lake City, Utah, who came together and made a lot of TikTok videos together and went viral and created Mom Talk. And how they kind of sprung to fame was there was a swinging scandal that happened where Taylor Frankie Paul came out on TikTok Live saying that there were swingers within the Mormon wives community. And it ended up just being her and another woman, but it kind of made the world think that all of the Mormon wives were swinging, and it was like a big scandal, and it actually got them their television show. So worked out really well for all the moms, even though they were really mad at Taylor at the time. So the first season of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives starts out and Taylor is in a new relationship. She has two previous, husbands or just men that she was dating who she's had children with. And she was dating a new man named Dakota, who was a recovering addict. And in the first season, we kind of hear a little bit about their relationship. It's a pretty toxic dynamic. And there is an incident where Taylor goes out with her friends and is drinking, and she comes home and there is a fight that ensues between her and Dakota, and the police come and Taylor gets arrested. Now that's all we knew, like at the beginning when we first started watching Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. But pretty recently, Taylor was asked to be on The Bachelorette. And she went and she filmed her entire season, and she came back, and right as it was about to air, a video got leaked where the actual footage from that night where she got arrested shows that she is screaming at Dakota while he's filming her, and eventually she throws a chair. And you can see in the video, unfortunately, that her daughter is in the room. And it looks like the chair could have hit her or grazed her. She was in very close proximity to the chair that was thrown. And so amid all of that controversy, the Bachelorette franchise decided that they wanted to cancel the season completely. So a lot of discourse is coming about, like, should they have canceled the season or not? Because some people are saying, that would never happen for a man. There have been plenty of men who have history of violence against women or just other charges in general, and have been on plenty of television shows. Most recent example is The Traitors, Colton. I can't remember his last name. What's his last name, friend?
I don't remember his last name. The Traitor. Colton the Traitor.
Colton the Traitor. He had some charges against him for stalking the woman that won his bachelor season. So there's a lot of discourse about that. There's a lot of discourse about, like, who the victim is in the situation. Is it Taylor? Is it Dakota? Because there has been some women who have come out and said that it looks like a case of something called Darvo, which we can get into kind of like the specifics of that later, where the perpetrator kind of plays the victim and then records. They call it reactive abuse. The victim who then responds to the abuse that's been inflicted on them and then makes them seem like the perpetrator. And oftentimes, that was not caught when the police came, right? They immediately kind of saw Taylor as the one who was, she was really upset and Dakota was really calm. So they kind of, pinpointed her as the perpetrator. And so there's a lot of people who are saying, is that really true? Was it actually Dakota? So anyway, we thought that it would be a really great topic to discuss. And then one last thing, sorry, I know it's a long intro, but we also thought that multi-generational trauma is a big theme in this as well. Like Taylor has a really complicated family history that they go into a little bit more in season 4. And she essentially, her mom was with her biological dad, who apparently we found out in this season 4 that he was abusive towards Taylor's mom. And she was going to leave him and then found out that she was pregnant with Taylor, ultimately decided to leave the relationship to raise Taylor on her own. And Taylor only met her biological father one time. He got into an accident and had some injuries that completely changed his personality. And he actually got really into addiction and overdosed about 10 years ago. And so Taylor's only met him once in her life. And so there's a lot of family dynamic stuff in there that we can talk about as well.
The Chief or Two, we have talked about how it focuses on instances where there's power imbalance and then power equality. And so on the power imbalance side, you mentioned that Taylor and her mom and that relationship. And one of the major clips that I would reference to show that relationship is Taylor and her mom were in a session with a helping professional, looks like a therapist. And they were kind of just talking about the circumstances of her upbringing. And without going into too much detail, it was very obvious that the mom lacked some capacity in holding space for Taylor, right? And there's a lot of reach, grab, pull in the wrong direction in terms of the mom wanting things from Taylor. And then in addition to that, Taylor not really having the ability to have that star energy and or push against her mom or into her mom. And so I think that those things are pretty key, especially when you arrive to the point where Taylor has her own children. And so there is some significant learning opportunity when it comes to the healthiest raising of children. I think we do see in that video that was recently surfaced, Carly mentioned that the children were in the room. That was one video where I believe it was the son or daughter, one of them. And there's another video where another child is put in danger. So there's certainly some parenting improvements Dakota and Taylor certainly can do. And then I also wanted to mention that as far as the equality, the instances where there's power equality and they're working with peers, Taylor and Dakota have some significant communication gaps in terms of co-parenting, in terms of their relationship. Throughout the series, it is on again, off again in terms of if they're going to be together or not, if they are toxic or not for each other. And oftentimes the co-parenting piece, they lose sight of that as the focus. And so that is certainly something that, they could use opportunity for safe sharing, whereas someone else catching some of that energy, and then they would then be enabled to better communicate with one another. And then when it comes to the rest of Mom Talk, I certainly would suggest that this is going to be a significant blow for most of them, if not all of them. A few of them were able to achieve some other goals. You might have seen them on Dancing with the Stars, the other two, and you might see some of them in commercials. But the show is probably going to be canceled There's rumors of another spinoff, but anyway, I definitely think that the surfacing of this new footage is the linchpin in probably the cancellation of the show. And one last thing I'll say, going back to Carly's point, video recording does start at a certain time whenever the person hits the button, right? And so what happens previous to that, we don't know. However, I don't think that there are human beings that don't have the capacity to be victims or perpetrators, right? And so there is an easy assumption that can be made in terms of, oh well, this dynamic occurred, he is most likely to be the issue, right? But I think one of the things that Shiva 2 enables us to do is move conversations away from the blame or the person who is at fault towards the ultimate goal of harmony and health, right? And so I think that a lot of the fans, a lot of the watchers of the show and reality TV in general are going to make and jump to certain conclusions. But I would implore them to hesitate on that and gather as many facts as possible before we make a decision and make a conclusion.
We talked about chi at the beginning. We always do. Chi, the life force energy around the body. So chi for two, the two-person interactions and how that affects our chi, how that affects our biochemistry, our nervous system. We can also talk about the flow of energy that is most ideal. So like in two-person interactions specifically. So it sounds like, because I haven't watched any of this, I don't know anything about it. I'm hearing about this now fresh from Carly and Fred. But it sounds like, Dakota and Taylor are, like you're saying, some romantic dynamics that are less than ideal. So they have some things awakening, some energy that wants to come out. And it's some old baby stuff. It's some things that Taylor clearly hasn't, gotten to do with her mom. She isn't able to throw her goo at her mom. She isn't able to get, when things awaken, to direct her energy at her mom. Because ideally we can go up the chain of support. So to mom, and then if mom gets tired, she can turn to grandma, and grandma gets tired and she has some stuff coming up, then she can turn to great grandma or therapist or the greater, So there's a flow of energy that is most ideal. Ideally, it's not down the line to the children. So whatever child was present during this big fight almost got hit with a chair. Not the best flow of energy. And also the idea of victims and perpetrators, that black and white thinking, like Fred was saying, is less than ideal. What I think is hard, especially when police are coming into a situation, is whoever gets carted away is the one that's a criminal. But I think it would be more useful for us to think about it as like basketing. So we have a practice in Chi for Two. I can describe it. Imagine it. So we're all sitting in chairs. So if you're listening, you might not be sitting in a chair, but if you are, can weave your fingers together, and you might place them around your belly. This. And then if you imagine that somebody else is doing that for you, like a parent figure, a therapist, you might reach a hand and imagine you're reaching for something that is dangerous, like a hot stove. We're reaching. And if someone is there basketing you, you can reach as hard as you want. You can reach with both hands. I want this thing. That is not good for me. But parent or therapist can keep you from, getting to that thing and harming yourself, but you still get to do that full reach, grab, pull. And that can also be, for substances. And it sounds like Dakota, Taylor's mom, or Taylor's dad, maybe some other stuff, but reaching for things that are less ideal, that won't satisfy the real hunger within for nurturing and care. So So having that basketing, when your energy is going all crazy and you're a danger to yourself or others, you're just flinging your goo everywhere, or your claws come out and you just burr. Having the police or mental health professionals that can get some basketing, like, let's get you away from other people that you might harm and let these movements come out. That would be most ideal. So it sounds like at the moment that the police arrived, that Taylor was flinging her goo everywhere and looked like she was a danger to herself or others. So in an ideal world, the police would have been like, okay, let's get you away. Let's get you away so you can get these moves out. That's not how it works in our society, but it would be great if it did. And that's, I think, what the mental health system that psychiatric hospitals are trying to do. But but it sounds like Dakota probably he needs some help too. So yeah, thinking about everybody needing help. I just really resonated with what you said, Fred, about it not really being about victims and perpetrators and black and white thinking about it, but more everybody being able to get their stuff out in a healthy way with somebody who can catch it.
So did you watch it, or have you seen any clips?
Yeah, so yesterday I watched it for my first time. My sister loves the show and she'll tell me about it, but I haven't watched it yet. But I watched my first episode yesterday, and it was the last episode of the last season. And I'll tell you what, it's hard to watch for me personally. You know, seeing everyone flinging their goo and not feeling well and not getting the space they want or need or say they need, and people not listening to each other. And so during the show, I myself had to do some chi for two and vocal expression and things like that. But yeah, the episode starts off with their friend Whitney yelling at Jen, just being like, we're not friends, you know, F you. And she cries and she leaves, and Jen is shutting down, and she's like, oh, she's mad about something like, oh, I didn't say congratulations because she's on Dancing with the Stars. And there was one part where Zach was comforting Jen because Jen had just been voted off of Dancing with the Stars, and saying like, oh, hey, babe, like, you can be sad, but you have to be proud because you did this 8 weeks postpartum. Jen is kind of frustrated at Whitney because she's saying, oh, it looks like she was laughing at me for being voted off. She says to her followers, do you think she was laughing at me or glad she made it? Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think. And it's all this like, whew, all these social pressures, and yeah, it's rough to watch. And you see other people on the show, like Layla, dealing with body issues, dealing with anorexia. And I found out that apparently in the Mormon faith, it's like the more beautiful looking you are, the more, like the closer to godliness you are. And so there's all this pressure with that, patriarchy, etc., and a lot of body shame. There's a lot of body shame that I noticed on the show. It was interesting to hear Jen talk about her experience on Dancing with the Stars, saying, you know, I dreamed of this my whole life, and I've never felt more authentic than I did dancing. And you think about star energy and like how her energy was flowing at her arms and feeling seen and held in a way. And she felt like that was taken away from her. Now she's going back to this friend group that doesn't feel authentic, and there's a lot of fighting rhythms getting thrown at each other. Yeah, you could see that she's wanting other ways of being, new healthy ways of being. And how do we get that? How do they get that?
The opportunity for Shiva 2 is rich. Every single person in this cast could use it. If we move beyond Taylor, the dynamics, you know, all of them are mothers that are, I think none of them are older than 35. So having the life presence or the life experience that, or not having it, and then having to be responsible for other human beings, the societal pressures, as you said, Chelsea, all of the social media, it's rich for an opportunity like Chief or Two. Go ahead, Cass.
Oh yeah. So more than the nervous system map, I was thinking about the circles of support when you were talking, Chelsea. So I'm just going to hold them up here and see if it kind of, anyway, I think it's backwards. But so in 2 for 2, we talk about kind of getting symbolic redos of dances with our caregivers through all these different circles of support. And ideally, we can get to self-supported adult circle of support once we get enough redos with our caregivers. But it's an ongoing process, and it's not linear. It's more like a maze or a labyrinth. So doing all of these and doing them again. But it's the first circle of support is in the womb, where the caregiver is holding support for baby in the womb. Second is the pouch. Humans are really born too early, so we kind of need more womb once we get outside of the womb for a while. So caregiver holds circle of support in the pouch. And then lap. This is the first time that a child will get to hold their own sort of circle of support. They get to sit up and support their own spine and head, and then crawl, and then they get farther away and their bubble might pop so they can go back to the lap. And then watch, the big one. Watch me. And it just sounds like a lot of this reality TV stuff and Dancing with the Stars is particularly what was it? I don't know their names. You said Jen or Whitney.
Yeah, Jen.
Was saying about star, like I feel so like my star energy, but it sounds like it's within the watch circle of support, being really, really hungry to be seen and known. And that's very natural, but it sounds like sort of like a lot of baby stuff coming up. So when it's sort of ripped away, that it just hurts so much. And then bringing that baby stuff and that pain to the friend group, which is less than ideal, because ideally peers are doing more what we call safe share. So catching their own energy as it's coming up, or working with it within their own bubble, their own hula hoop, rather than flinging it at each other. If we need to fling our goo, we can find somebody up the chain of support in caregiver, therapist, parent. So yeah, that sounds very sad. And I more ideally when you're performing, Mary Lou Davidson and Dee Wagner developed Who's on the Stage, specifically thinking about Chi for Two and performers. And Chelsea, I'm sure you have more to say about this than I do as a performer.
A lot of musicians and artists feel like, if I'm playing a gig at a hotel, it's like, okay, I'm playing a gig and I want you to clap for me when I'm done. That's kind of been a lot of the I don't know if I want to say, I can say like unhealthy behavior, because when you're the performer, you're supposed to be holding the space for the audience. You're not supposed to be, reach grabbing for them. It's more like, here's me strumming, and this is for you. This is for you.
Yeah, I would say, just to echo that, anyone who is holding attention is holding the space. So while I'm not a performer or a dancer, I am pretty well versed in public speaking. And so when you are behind that podium, or when I'm behind that podium, I have the microphone, it is on. I am the space holder. Whether you're giving information, or you're like fielding questions and giving answers, you do have to be the person who all the energy comes to, as opposed to you wanting folks to react in a certain way or what have you. So it is important to recognize the importance of being somewhat elevated in a way of just the person who's holding the attention. So having care with that is very important.
Yeah, that makes me think of a little bit of what you were kind of bringing in earlier, Chelsea, talking about like social media. The example that you had given was Jen going on live and saying, like, do you think that Whitney was smiling when I left or got voted out? Or do you think that she was just happy and relieved that she was staying in the competition? And I think, and I'd be curious, sorry, I don't mean to keep going to you, Chelsea, but I just feel like you'd be a great person to talk about this because, performing like on many different stages, right? Like, for some of the women, I'm imagining that they kind of feel like because of their social media following that they're performing for the world. I mean, there's millions and millions of people who are watching their videos, who are watching the show, and how that can impact, like, especially if they don't have the chief or two that is allowing them to recognize that they're the people that are holding space for the audience. How that impacts, I'm thinking of Layla. You mentioned that she struggles with body image issues, and she was saying that when she was getting comments at first of people saying, you know, you're too skinny, this is unhealthy, eat a burger, all of those things, she was getting a dopamine rush from that. She was like, oh, they see me. They see that I am doing all of this work to not eat food, to be smaller. I don't know. I just kind of feel like a lot of this, we could talk about the social media of it all to some extent. And the reason I was thinking you, Chelsea, and again, sorry, you don't have to speak on it if you don't want to, but is because I think you have a pretty decent social media following, at least in my eyes. So I'd be curious if you have thought about your social media presence in some way as holding space for your followers.
It's funny because I feel like I've really taken space from social media because I've felt completely overwhelmed by it. Lately, I've been redeveloping my relationship with it. Like, what feels good to me? Like, what feels good to, I guess, show others, and in a way that does feel like I'm, in a way, holding space for them rather than just being like, look at me, look at what I'm doing. It's more like, hey, I'm putting on this show, and I think you might have a lot of fun if you come to this show. And here's an invitation. You don't have to come. Like, either way, like, this, here's just an invitation. It's here for you to think about, and you can say yes or no, and I'm happy either way, you know. I'm good either way. So it's been fun to redevelop my relationship with that. But yeah, I guess it really is about invitation and applauding them either way. No shame in saying no or yes. Wherever you're at is celebrated.
You know, I definitely think social media is a huge aspect to today's life in general, whether you're on TV or not. I was at a homecoming for my college maybe a year or two ago, and one of my classmates said, I don't have, or I didn't, at least at that point, have a strong social media, and I don't think my Instagram was up. And he said, oh, I didn't know if you was alive or not, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, my number hasn't changed since school, right? And yeah, while he was joking, it is a matter of people glean what's going on in your life from what you put out there on social media, as opposed to picking up the phone and calling or shooting you a text. That's neither here nor there. But it has taken on its own life, and it is the avatar for everyone's life. No one's going to put out there, oh, I had my therapy session today. No, I'm on my way to Tulum or something, right? So crafting the story you want to go out there is the reason or the use case for social media. And so it's unfortunate that authenticity and humanity is not at the forefront, or are not at the forefront of social media. And you have to, you know, be a certain way, be living a certain lifestyle. That vulnerability and that reality, unfortunately, just doesn't quite have a place on social media, unfortunately. And so when you take it to individuals that are on TV, all the fans and watchers feel like they have access to you via, I mean, And then, of course, as I mentioned before, you add on other contextual factors like the religion, well, like Mormonism, like the demographics on the show, I think, are pretty glaring too, right? And so I think that that is a key factor, is at least experience. If you were to go back maybe 1 or 2 seasons ago, there's a hairstylist that's part of Mom Talk, and she probably does everybody's hair. She does the hair of other people on other reality TV shows in the same city. Layla was going to her at one point, and then there was a serious conversation that was shot, where Layla had to say, "Hey, I think it's Jesse, right? Hey, I'm thinking about going to somebody else that has increased expertise on how to deal with the texture of my hair, X, Y, and Z." Fortunately, Jesse was 100% on board with that. And, she said, definitely do it. Maybe I can come and learn and X, Y, and Z. So I think that was a good example of a safe share where the person on her side was able to be on her side and walk in the path, in the fictional or proverbial path in terms of towards the goal of fulfillment, towards the goal of this individual wanting her hair to be done a certain way and a certain quality and with a certain care. And so there's a certain level of expertise and knowledge necessary. So fortunately, that person didn't receive it as an offense. Layla was able to communicate what was necessary and what she needed, and they were able to move forward, harmoniously. So there's just a lot going on there in Salt Lake. So I'll leave it at that.
When you said hairstylist, I thought that person, it's something weird with my hair. Anyway, that person, I automatically think that person as more like the mother figure. So the hairstylist, less as peers. So like being able to bring that to the mother and the mother saying, "Oh, okay, maybe I can learn something too. That's cool. Mm-hmm. Thanks for letting me know," which is ideal interaction there too. So it's really great having that happen. That sounds really nice.
Example, Cass, of like power differentials and how they can shift within the same relationship. Mm. Because Jesse and Layla are friends, right? But I was thinking the same exact thing, actually, when you said that. So basically because I know that you kind of said this, Fred, like Jesse is like, because Layla and her are friends, Layla felt a friendship expectation to go to her for her to do her hair. But like you said, when you're in that chair, the hairstylist, then it kind of shifts the power differential to, like you said, more of the mothering, and I'm providing you the service and I'm caring for your hair. And so I just thought that was interesting, because I think that that's something that we probably face in a lot of our relationships, where it's like, okay, in this instance, like you're providing me a service, but in this instance for friends. And so is it a safe share? Is it a flinging goo towards the mother? I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, the changes in that that's very tricky. It's very tricky. I think I guess because I didn't know they were friends. I guess I would think of that more as like, because in every friendship, one person knows a little bit more about this than that. I have a friend and I know more about Cheaper True than her. And so I can be like, well, it's just informing you, letting you know about that, but we're still on each other's side, and I'm not offering Cheaper True services and stuff. It's just really tricky with shifting and being really mindful of those power differentials or relationships with power equality. Because once, if you were flinging goo at a person and it's really your deep baby stuff, once you do that you can't really shift the relationship back into friends. I don't think. I mean, I can put this up for debate, but I don't think that's possible if it's really that like really deep baby stuff.
Friendships, I don't think end up, if they're true friendships, they shouldn't shift into that differential and stuff like that, where there's a reach, grab, pull, and a space holding. It certainly should be, on each other's side, walking the same path. Just to get back to the Taylor and Dakota and Colton, I do think that there is a something to be said about the pathway reality stars take and the results of their actions. There's certainly should be some consequences in my mind. I mean, let's just look at it for what it is. You're not doing anything in particular more talented or more unique than anyone else. You just have agreed to allow cameras to follow you around. A1. Then you say some things, you do some things that enable you to increase your following. Perfect. Now you've got Dunkin' Donuts wanting to do ads with you and so forth, right? Then you might say something that's a little controversial. And now all of a sudden your character is looked at or should this person have this platform and should this brand be partnering with them in X, Y, and Z? I think Colton, I'm not as familiar with Colton's journey. I believe he was a bachelor, right? And on his season of Traitors, there was a lot of controversy around his outward journey in terms of his sharing of his sexuality. Came on, and Carly, definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but came on Bachelor, was a male bachelor with bachelorettes, and got to one, and they got married, or they ended up having a exclusive relationship, not marriage yet. Okay. And then they fell out. He was apparently stalking her, and there was just a whole situation. And then post that, he shares that he is gay. Whatever your journey is, it certainly is one that, is personal to you, and however you endeavor to share or choose to share is up to you. But I definitely think that, you've got, he had stalking charges. Taylor's going to have some domestic charges. Colton, I believe, had to sit down for a second, maybe. And then there was some years between his Bachelor appearance and Traitors appearance, right? And so what happened in between them? I don't know. But I definitely think there is something to be said for the consequences of one's actions. And a quick aside, there is a current NBA star that has been let go from his team due to inflammatory comments he made on his social media. They were not very friendly to various marginalized groups. And so now his team has let him go. This is what happens. And so social media creates I don't know if dangerous is the right word, but certainly precarious game in terms of what you put out there into the world. This individual is probably going to say, oh, well, this 30-second clip doesn't equal my character. It might not, but you certainly had a lot to say when you recorded yourself and then hit the button to send it to the world.
That was so beautifully said. Sorry, I don't even have a response. I mean, I just agree. We could get down a whole other rabbit hole, to be honest. I just kind of wanted to go back for a second on the demographics. Fred, like he said, I mean, what you were essentially saying is that, like, most people in Salt Lake City, Utah are white. A lot of them are Mormon, right? I can't remember if what exactly Layla's background was. Like, I think that she is mixed, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so. I'd have to ask my fiance, but I believe that. Well, what's interesting is, okay, throughout the history of America, a certain amount of blackness equaled black, right? So unfortunately, maybe I don't do the right investment of understanding someone's background because of what they appear. And so I can accept that. So we'll leave it there.
And I can respond to that. Like, the reason I even say that is because I think that there is a narrative that she talks about of, am I black enough? Am I white enough? Mm-hmm. Right. And even just like thinking of her hair texture, right? Mm-hmm. Like going to a hairstylist in the first place who knows nothing about black hair, right? And she was doing that for years, feeling that she had to, and, you know, however she wants to do her hair, is how she wants to do her hair, right? But like feeling like she had to mimic the hairstyles of the white women around her. I just think that that's interesting. And then we could get down so many rabbit holes, but I was also thinking demographics in terms of gender, which we kind of talked about that a little bit. Like, in the Mormon, I don't know much about the Mormon religion, so I'm not trying to like speak on, just from what I've observed. Man as head of household is kind of the situation, which then also affects the power differentials. Like I was thinking of, and I don't know if we've talked about this yet, but well, we did talk about Jen and Whitney getting into that huge fight. Then Whitney reaches out as a friend, as a safe share to Jen, or an attempt at a safe share to Jen, to say, I'm really sorry for yelling at you. That was unacceptable. Can we have a talk? Jen is feeling her baby stuff. Like, I don't want to have a talk with her. Like, you know, F her. She told me to F off. So she sends her husband in her place to have the conversation with Whitney, which I just think is interesting. It's kind of like, you know, the power differential in her eyes in that marriage is that he is kind of, we say mother, you know, mothering her in that situation. Like, you know, I'll take care of it for you. I will kind of, he even said, like, I'll go yell at her for you, essentially. I'll go berate her for you. So I don't know. There's just a lot of gender, race, a lot of demographic.
Just a quick hit on the demographic piece. It is Salt Lake City. And, you know, the reality is, you know, there are 2 other reality TV shows, each with one other individual. The Housewives have one black person, and then there was a selling SOC show that had one black realtor. The demographics of it is just what it is. I definitely think it plays into what is seen on TV. It is, on the Mormon Wives, they do a better job, I would say, or at least it's not quite at the forefront in terms of the how it might be elsewhere. We'll leave it there. And when it comes to, you know, like I said, that their religious aspect certainly plays into them as their like relational dynamics. A key piece to that also is the fact that now that we're on season 4, a lot of these women are the breadwinners in their families. So, wow, in 2026 that shouldn't be an issue. It still creates a dynamic. One of the husbands quit medical school to support his wife. Now, there's so many things to be said there in terms of supporting your wife and family doesn't mean stop your path towards one of the highest earning jobs you can have in this country. But, you know, he felt like he's the same guy who felt like he was going to avenge his wife and stand up to Whitney, which, the gender dynamics aside, this is person A that has an issue with person B. You are person C. Why are you involved? Oh, I'm protecting her, X, Y, Z. Now, so many things have been said about that in terms of, was he protecting his wife? Did Jen just not want to speak to Whitney? They just had their own dynamic that didn't work out, or they were at an impasse, and whatever can be said about that. I do think I don't like the fact that he felt like he had to step in, nor do I like the fact that Jen didn't handle it herself. You know, this is your friend. The 2 of you should be having the conversation. Now, if there's a point now, as a future husband, I can see him as a husband feeling like, oh, I have to protect my wife, or I have to stand in this gap. But I think that, again, Chief for 2 would enable them to be able to kind of have more of that understanding developed and some of that communication shared so that they can develop that understanding ultimately. But those things are significant. I certainly think Salt Lake, just geographics, I think religious overtones all play a significant factor in the star energy of all these individuals.
Bringing in Cheaper 2 again, in terms of like how we could help couples who are struggling with that. Like I was thinking, like you said, Fred, men are socialized in a lot of ways to feel like they have to be the protector and the breadwinner and all of those things, right? And how maybe some of that is not the side of the street of their partner. maybe that is some work that they can, and same, women and the ways that they're socialized and feeling maybe sometimes like they have to shrink their star energy. That could be also not the side of the street of the partner and something to bring to a Cheaper 2 coach in a session. And it could be an individual session. It could also be a couple session. I think one thing that I love about how Cheaper 2, like kind of the structure of a couple session in Cheaper 2, is that you kind of invite both partners to feel into their not my side of the street and their hula hoop, so that the other partner can just fling their goo at the Cheaper 2 coach as much as they freaking want to. And the other partner doesn't feel responsible in any way for having to protect or to save or to comfort or to nurture, all of that. So I think that that's just a way that Cheaper 2 could handle some of these dynamics.
Yes, I think the word support is a really tricky word, as I heard it. You say it a few times, Fred, and the husband feeling like he needs to quit medical school to support his wife. But support can mean so many things. So it's really confusing. Ideally, we are self-supported adults, and it might sound lonely to some people. Okay, we're self-supported. How exactly are you on each other's side, but not my side of the street, and still feel connected, still with each other, and celebrating each other as you do difficult work to grow and develop as adults. It's really, Cheaper 2 couples work is so rich in that way, like how to feel that in your body, how to notice when baby stuff is coming up, be able to time out and bring it to the coach instead of each other, but still be on each other's side, not cutting each other off. Just, I'm feeling something. I feel the warmth of you. You're still here, and I appreciate that, but I am going to bring my claws and teeth to coach, so that no violence happens, like no throwing chairs. But it seems like reality TV, it brings up all this watch circle support stuff that they like, but also look at what we have going on here in our society. Look at it. Does it bring up laughter? There's definitely a lot. We didn't joke around as much this time because I think we're on Zoom and it's a little different energy. But it can bring up laughter. Laughter is filling up the bubble or around your body, so you feel some distance from it, which can feel nice maybe. And see what you were able to do that might be different than them, but also what this world needs. It seems like it can be useful as long as it's not just about advertising, bringing eyes to people that are so hungry for people to see them and feeding off of that for the benefit of large corporations. If that's all that it is, and that's all that comes from it, then no good. But if we can see it and learn from it, that would be great.
On the last episode of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, Taylor's in the van on her way to the Bachelorette, and she's on the phone with Dakota, and he's apologizing again. I'm sorry, I'm acting like a dumbass. I'm sorry, and tell me what you're sorry for, And he says, I'm sorry for acting like a dumbass, and, it doesn't have to be toxic. It's up to us. We can heal. He says all this stuff. He's very much aware of that, and they just need the tools. They just really need the tools to know how to heal. I giggled, though. He said, save a rose for me.
It's so funny because it also does timestamps of 3 hours before the Bachelorette, 2, and basically, and then he says, save a rose for me. And then 6 hours after he says that, he's flirting with another girl at a party. So it's just all over the place.
Yeah.
There is, yes, laughter that can happen with all of this as well.
Great job. I think we reached the conclusion of this week's episode.
Is there a practice that this stuff made you guys want to do?
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is like a self-hug, but part of jaw transformation.
Yes.
So
And for listeners, we're putting our hands behind our heads to support our head and neck.
yeah, at the base of the skull where the vagus nerve begins. Ideally, when we're born, and not everybody gets what is ideal, most people don't, but if we did, we would turn over in the womb and then dive up through the birth canal, switching breathing and swallowing to our nose and mouth from our umbilical cord, which did all the work in the womb, but now breathing and swallowing, which is a pretty huge change. And then ideally we're put skin to skin with the body we came out of and do a birth crawl. And then are picked up by some big hands and cradled under our head here and brought to the breast or the bottle to get some nurturing energy and some food, coordinating breathing and swallowing, feeling safe, and then being able to rest and digest, squirm against the pouch. And I like this part because it's like you get to rest and feel like what you need is being brought to you. You don't have to crane your neck and look for it. That you can rest, and then what you need is right here.
You can find us at chifor2.com with any questions, concerns, comments.
Until next time.
Well, next time, thank you for listening.